Hello everyone. In the previous episode, what we had achieved was this. Yes, we had coded bubble sort using the C programming language. In this episode, what we are supposed to do is to achieve the same using the other two popular languages, namely Java and Python. So, let's get started. Firstly, let me tell you what are the changes you need to make in as far as the main function is concerned. Even before I tell you the changes, let me tell all my viewers that in case of Java, we don't call the functions as functions, rather we use the term methods. So, what are the changes that I have to make in as far as the main method is concerned? Well, what in C language we call as void main, in Java we denote it as public static void main. I know there are quite a few new keywords that you are encountering, and maybe moving forward in some other episode I'll clarify the meanings of these keywords, but this is the general format of the main method in as far as Java is concerned. And not just that, there is a rule in Java that all the methods, or in other words all the functions, have to be enclosed within a class. So abiding by that rule, I will enclose my main method within a class called alpha. I would enclose my bubsort method within a class called beta, and I would enclose my display method within a class called gamma. What are the other changes to be made? Let me explain. One last change that I have to make is in terms of calling the methods. Yes, in case of C language, whenever you wanted to call a function, you have just called it as bubsort of a comma n and display of a comma n, but in case of Java, I am not permitted to do that. As you can notice, bubsort is a method which belongs to the beta class, and display is a method which belongs to gamma class. And if you really have to call these methods, first you need to create an object of the respective class and then call the method. What it means, let me explain. I know there is possibly a bit of confusion amongst my viewers that I am using a lot of new terms: public, static, class, object, and so many other new terms that I have used. Please understand that Java happens to be an object-oriented programming language. In this episode, I am not discussing anything about object orientation or about the new keywords. This episode is to just tell you as to how to write the bubble sort program using Java, and that is all this episode is really meant for. And as I have told you, moving forward, maybe I would clarify what really object-oriented style of programming is and why really we need all of these keywords. But as of now, if I really have to call this bubsort method, I first need to create an object of the beta class using the new keyword like this. And then once the object is created, I can call bubsort by telling b.bubsort. Not just that. If in case I have to call this display method which belongs to the gamma class, I will have to create an object of the gamma class using the new keyword like this. And then I can be calling my display method like that. So all that you really need to understand is that this happens to be the code in Java. I'm sure there are many new things in this code, but at least you have understood as to how we can easily convert a code in C to the code in Java, and when I'll execute, this is the output. So this was the bubble sort code in C, and we successfully converted it to Java. Well, what I now have to do is to go ahead and convert the same code into the Python code. And so, let me proceed. Let me consider the bubsort function to start with. Yes, the code is in C programming language, and what we have to do is to transform it to the Python code. I will have to tell you as to how, line by line, we can transform it to the Python code starting from the first line. You know that the line happens to be the defining line of the bubsort function, and the same line can be coded in Python like this. Yes, you are specifying that you are defining the bubsort function, and the bubsort function is accepting the array A as well as n as the input parameters. Next, you can notice that we have a statement in which we have declared the variables I, j, and temp. But then in Python, I don't need it. Yes, there are no declarations in Python. Anyway, I now have to proceed and tell you as to how the for loops and the if condition can be converted to the Python code. Look at the first for loop. You are specifying that the loop index variable I ranges from 0 to n minus 2, and the same code can be expressed in Python like this. Yes, you are expressing that the loop index variable I ranges from 0 to n minus 2. But then let me caution all my learners here that always in Python you have to add 1 to the upper limit of my loop index variable. What I mean to say is that the upper limit happens to be n minus 2 and you need to add 1 to it, which means that it becomes n minus 2 plus 1, which becomes n minus 1. This was the loop in C, and the same loop can be expressed in Python like this. Next, I need to now convert the second loop in C to the Python code. In the second loop, you are expressing that the loop index variable j ranges from 0 to n minus 2 minus I, and the same statement can be expressed in Python like this. And you know that we need to add 1 to the upper limit of j as well, which means that it becomes n minus 2 minus I plus 1, which is n minus 1 minus I. I'm sure already you have a few questions bothering you. Why am I supposed to add 1 to the upper limit of the loop index variable? Why shouldn't I declare the variables I, j and temp? Well, I'm sure you have a lot of such questions, and let me address those questions. But as of now, my priority is to tell you as to how this if statement can be converted to the Python code. The if statement in C can be expressed in Python like this. And you know, within the if, we were swapping a of j and a of j plus 1. And how do we do it in case of Python? Well, I have two numbers, a of j and a of j plus 1, and if I have to swap them, I'll have to give a of j to a of j plus 1 and a of j plus 1 to a of j. This is the way we can swap the two variables using Python. And you can notice that Python has an elegant and concise syntax. We are not even using the third variable temp in order to swap a of j and a of j plus 1. Nevertheless, most of the C code has been converted to Python code, but what about these flower braces? Let me tell you. Even before I tell you how to handle these flower braces in case of Python, let me ask you a question. What is the real role of these flower braces? I'm sure you've been using it throughout programming, and what really is the role of it? Well, look at these outermost pair of flower brace. What it really indicates is that this remaining piece of code happens to be present within the body of the bub sort. That is what this pair of flower brace indicates. Now, how does the same indication happen here? Let me tell you. This highlighted portion of code in C is nothing but this in case of Python. Well, in this case, you know that the highlighted code is present within the body of the bub sort function. But then, how do I make that effect be felt here? Well, I am certainly not going to make use of the flower braces, but then if I have to make the same effect be felt, all that I have to do is to move this code 4 spaces to the right or by a tab space like this. Yes, we don't make use of flower braces in case of Python, but then to indicate that this piece of code is present within the body of the bub sort function, this is the way we achieve it. And so I'm sure now you've been able to understand as to how the flower braces present in other programming languages can be expressed in case of Python. Now, what about the remaining flower braces? Let me tell you. Look at this second pair of flower braces. Well, they are the flower brace with respect to the outer loop. And what does that indicate? Well, it indicates that this remaining piece of code happens to be present within the outer loop. And the highlighted portion of code is nothing but this in case of Python. And to indicate that this piece of code is present within the outer loop, all that I have to do is to shift it to the right by 4 spaces like this. So, I'm sure you understand as to how we can easily tackle the flower braces. And then now look at this pair, and the equivalent effect here is this. And look at this pair, and the equivalent effect is this. So, I'm sure now you understand as to how the complete code in C can be transformed to Python. This is the display function in C, and we need to convert it to Python. Anyway, the first line can be expressed in Python like this. Yes, we are defining a function called display which accepts the array A as well as n as the input parameters. The next line happens to be a declaration statement, and you know in Python I don't need it. The next one happens to be a loop, and the loop can be expressed in Python like this. But then you also know that I need to add a 1 to the upper limit. The upper limit happens to be n minus 1. So if I'll add a 1, it becomes n minus 1 plus 1, which means it is n, which means that this loop can be expressed in Python like this. Anyway, within the loop, I had a print statement, and the same print can be expressed in Python like this. Though most of the conversion is over, I still have to speak about the flower braces. You know, the first pair of flower brace can be expressed in Python like this, and the second pair of flower brace can be expressed in Python like this. So, I'm sure now you feel a lot more confident about conversion of the C code to Python code, though there are a few queries bothering you. Even before I address those queries, let me now consider the main function. This is the main function in C, and in Python, I don't need this. Yes, that is the syntax of Python, that I need not write void main and hash include and all of that. Anyway, the statements within the main are certainly required. The first statement within the main was to create an array and place the unsorted data within the array, which in Python can be written like this. And then, you know, we had created a variable n and initialized it to 6, which in Python is like this. And then the calls to the bubsort function and the display function, well, they would remain as it is. So this was the main function in C, and the equivalent in Python looks like this. Anyway, the complete Python code looks like this. And when I'll execute, this is the output. In this episode, what you've been able to understand is to how we can code bubble sort using Java and using Python. While the code is almost clear to you, I'm sure you have your own set of doubts. The meaning of the terms public, static, the use of class, object, and all of that could be bothering you there. And here, the usage of colon, the new syntax of the for loop, and also many other issues could be bothering you here. Well, let me tell all my learners that this episode series is not meant to clarify the programming language issues to you. You know, this series is all about the sorting techniques. My attempt in this series is going to make the 10 commonly asked sorting techniques as simple as possible to you. Well, the focus, as I have told, is on the sorting technique, and hence I may not be able to go ahead and clarify all of the queries that you have. But then moving forward, if in case a separate series is released on the respective languages, then let me assure you that there would be absolutely no doubt in as far as these language features are concerned. But as of now, since this is an episode series on sorting, let all of your focus be on the sorting techniques, and certainly as young job aspirants, you need to know to express the program in the top 3 languages. If you really want to gain more knowledge, continue watching the series.